You all, as you're sitting here, are systems that simulate and emulate themselves for themselves as they're listening to me.
It was supposed to be just another lecture. Nobody expected what came next. This is the recording they almost buried.
Of course you don't see with your eyes. I hope nobody of you believes that.
No one talks about what happened after. Some call it a glitch, others a mistake. But the recording still exists. Proof of a moment when a man somehow cracked reality itself.
You see with your visual system. But on the user surface, so to speak, on the top level, there is this abbreviated short story the system tells itself that it sees with its eyes. And it creates this little avatar, which you are, the phenomenal self-model. This avatar doesn't know it has a visual cortex, it just sees with its eyes. It doesn't know it has a motor cortex. It just acts with its hands.
Before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Raycon. Black Friday week is literally starting in 2003, a quiet philosopher walked onto a stage in Germany and said something that should have stopped the world, but it didn't. His lecture was recorded, archived, and mostly ignored. Too abstract, too strange, too dangerous. He didn't speak like a scientist or a preacher. He spoke like someone dismantling reality one word at a time. There is no self, he said. You are not someone inside your head. You are the head's own hallucination. His name was Thomas Metzinger. And after that night, nothing about consciousness could ever be the same.
Given all this, isn't it true that the self is an illusion? I think it is not true because it contains a logical mistake. On the level on which we are talking, there is no such thing as truth or falsity. Yet, there is no body who could have an illusion in this system. So if you really wanted to stay with the idea that the self is an illusion, you would have to say that it is an illusion which is no one's illusion.
Those who heard him speak said it felt less like a lecture and more like the floor giving way beneath them. Because if the self is an illusion, then who is left to see through it? It's just like someone watching a movie, but the watcher is also part of the movie. For as long as you've been alive, it's felt like you are the one sitting behind your eyes, observing the world play out on some private screen. You feel like there's a solid I inside, the thinker of thoughts, the doer of actions, the one who sees it all happen. But according to Metzinger, that feeling is the first and greatest illusion. He says there is no little person in the head, no observer hiding behind the curtain. There is only a process, a simulation the brain runs, so convincing that the simulation believes it's someone. He calls this process the phenomenal self-model, or PSM. It's the brain's internal representation of you, your body, your emotions, your memories, your voice. Every second, this model updates itself, drawing from sight, sound, touch, heartbeat, and motion. It is not you watching the world, it is the world watching itself through you.
All events in the world are controlled by my own volitional acts. So to speak, the self-model can also expand to the boundaries of the world. And in a couple of years, I gave a talk in a psychiatry institute in Germany, and they had 2 patients there. One of them was standing by the window all day making the sun move, experiencing every little movement as self-caused. And the other guy was looking down into traffic, making the cars drive, the puppets walk, turning the traffic lights on and off. So there are phenomenal states in which every event that is consciously experienced is experienced as self-caused. And of course, every modern philosophy of mind has to account for all these phenomena, or it is not an interesting theory of mind.
In plain words, your brain is running a movie, but it hides the projector. Metzinger calls this hiddenness transparency. You don't see the screen through which the world appears, you only see the world. That's why you can't step outside of your experience, because the thing you'd step outside with is part of the same illusion. Your sense of being someone is just the system monitoring itself from within, like a mirror trapped in its own reflection.
A standard philosophical definition will say that only content properties of certain representational structures used by the brain are available to introspection. The vehicles, as philosophers say themselves, the physical states employed by the system are transparent. That is, they do not represent the fact that they are representations on the level of their content. Just look at these flowers here. We would say as philosophers this is a phenomenally transparent representation because you introspect your perceptual processing as hard as you want to. You cannot recognize the fact that this is all a state in your visual system. You cannot see the representational state itself, and that is why you are a naive realist. You have the feeling you are in direct and immediate contact with reality. We are systems that, so to speak, look through their own representational structures as if they were in direct and immediate contact with their content.
Your brain doesn't know you, it only pretends to. It performs the role of you so well that the actor forgets it's acting. And every time you wake up, that performance begins again, seamless, effortless, invisible. But even the best performances break. Every illusion leaves traces of the trick if you know where to look. Sometimes the brain hesitates, loses its rhythm, and the mask slips just enough to show what's underneath. Your mind can give you a hand that doesn't exist, or take away one that does exist. Every now and then, the illusion of being someone flickers. The brain, usually flawless at stitching its story together, slips. And for a brief moment, you can see the seams holding your reality in place. One of the most famous examples came in 1998, when psychologists Matthew Botvinnik and Jonathan Cohen published a study that would change how we think about body ownership. They called it the rubber hand illusion.
In the illusion, normal individuals experience an artificial limb, a rubber hand, as if it were part of their own body. The subject observes a facsimile of a human hand, the rubber hand, while one of his own hands is hidden from view. Both the artificial hand and the subject's hands are stroked repeatedly and synchronously with a probe. The green and yellow areas indicate the tactile and visual receptive fields, respectively, for neurons in the premotor cortex. You see something shifts. The subject experiences an illusion in which the felt touch is brought into alignment with the seen touch. This brings the visual receptive field into alignment with the rubber hand, resulting in activation of premotor cortex neurons.
A few years earlier, neuroscientists Villayanur S. Ramachandran and D. Rogers Ramachandran published a paper on something equally uncanny called phantom limbs. Many amputees continue to feel pain or movement in limbs that no longer exist.
How many of you have heard of these mirror experiments, mirror synesthesia? You have these people who have an amputated arm and they have a phantom limb. And usually that phantom limb will go away within a couple of weeks with a so-called telescoping effect. The phantom limb becomes smaller, you can make a fist and a stump and then it disappears. Some people, however, have a hurting phantom limb that is paralyzed and stays up to 12 years. And how do you cure pain in a non-existing limb?
Ramachandran's solution was a mirror box. When patients placed their intact limb in front of a mirror and moved it, the reflection gave the illusion that the missing limb was moving too. The result? Relief. The pain faded, and the frozen phantom began to move. The mirror didn't heal the body, it healed the brain's map of the body. In both cases, the lesson is the same. Your sense of self is elastic, not fixed. The brain edits reality to keep the story consistent, even if it has to lie to you. And when it lies perfectly, when every single line's up, you call it truth. However, sometimes the story breaks completely. The illusion doesn't just flicker, it vanishes. The actor walks off stage and yet the play keeps going without him. Think about it for a moment. What happens when people lose themselves? There are moments when the center of consciousness, the feeling of being me, simply slips away. The body still breathes, the eyes still see, but the one who claims ownership disappears. Psychiatrists call this depersonalization or derealization. In 1998, researchers Mario Sierra and G.E. Barrios published a study in biological psychiatry describing patients who felt detached from their own existence, as if watching life unfold through thick glass.
Every day people come into emergency wards and say things like this: "Doctor, I am a robot. I am transformed into a mechanical puppet. My volitional acts are not my own volitional acts anymore." You have that in depersonalization. You feel remote controlled, and you lose what German philosopher and psychiatrist Karl Jaspers called Vollzugsbewusstsein, executive consciousness, the phenomenal experience not only of initiating an act, but of carrying it through. But then you also have states where people say, "I am the whole world."
There are more dramatic fractures of the self. Alien hand syndrome, documented in medical case reviews around 2009, exposes how fragile agency can be. In this condition, one hand acts on its own, unbuttoning a shirt, the other hand just unbuttoned, reaching for objects the person doesn't intend to touch.
In alien hand syndrome, my arm performs goal-directed actions without my own control. The interesting thing about that syndrome is that you have goal-directed actions, typically with a sense of intermanual conflict. The alien hand syndrome patient will pick up the phone and the other hand will slam the thing down and interrupt it. One hand will button down the shirt, the other hand will button it up. The interesting thing is that some patients even start to attribute personality to that limb because it's so obviously goal-directed. It's clear you can have goal-directed motor behavior which cannot be integrated into your conscious self model.
Patients often describe the limb as having a will of its own. Neurologists trace the cause to damage in the brain's corpus callosum, or frontal lobes, where planning and control intertwine. When the connection weakens, intention splits from movement, and the mind becomes a crowded room. But the loss of self isn't always an illness. Throughout history, saints, monks, and psychonauts have sought the same vanishing point. They called it surrender, enlightenment, unity with the divine. Across brain scans and ancient scriptures, one pattern repeats. The self is not a solid thing. It flickers, it breaks, it can even vanish completely, yet awareness remains. But what if the reason you can't find the self is because it's hiding in plain sight? What if the illusion works so perfectly that even when you look for it, you're already seeing through it? The trap isn't outside you. It's the lens you're looking through right now. Thomas Metzinger's most unsettling idea is that you can't see the illusion because you are the illusion. He explains that the brain builds a perfectly transparent model of reality and of yourself inside it. Transparent means you can't recognize it as a model at all. It feels like direct contact with the world. You look through the glass of your own mind and never notice the glass. The self is not a secret observer hiding in the dark. It's the reflection projected on that glass. To make the illusion run smoothly, the brain doesn't just represent the world, it also represents the act of looking. Metzinger calls this the phenomenal model of the intentionality relation, or PMIR. It's the constant sense of, I see this now, I hear this now, I am thinking this. According to cognitive science summaries, this structure joins subject and object into one loop, so tightly woven that you can't tell which side of perception you're on. It's not that you have experiences, experience itself has you.
We are systems that co-represent the representational relationship while they represent. That is, the PMIR is a dynamical and transparent model of the self in the act of knowing. A PMIR is a continuously changing inner representation of ongoing subject-object relationships. That is, the relationship between, say, subject and perceptual object, or subject and internally represented action goal. We are systems capably of dynamically representing ourselves as selves standing in relationship to object components in the world or in our life.
The trap is that this invisible model feels like freedom. You feel autonomous, grounded, alive in a solid world. But every bit of that feeling is generated from within the same system that claims to be free. The brain hides its own code, not out of malice, but efficiency. If it had to remind you that everything you see, including yourself, is a simulation, you'd never act. You'd freeze between thought and movement, trapped in awareness of the trick. so it keeps the illusion seamless. The philosopher once said, "The perfect prison is the one that feels like freedom." We spend our lives inside that prison, calling it reality, calling it me.
Because strictly speaking, nobody is ever born and nobody ever dies.